And I first call Deputy Robert Troy. Deputy, 2 minutes.
Thank you, Laskin Corlett. Tánaiste, it's good to see the Labour ministers back on the front bench this week. You certainly were notable by your absence for the past 2 days. It would seem that every effort has been made by Minister Noonan and others in Fine Gael to move on from Mr McNulty's appointment to Emma so that he would qualify for the Shannon by-election. This is not going to happen until the basic questions are answered about the whole debacle. Some are saying this is an internal matter for Fine Gael, when in fact it is far from that. We have the ludicrous situation where Minister Humphreys has not addressed this House and taken questions about her involvement in this matter. Yet she is able to address the Fine Gael Parliamentary Party last night. She issued a press release on Tuesday night which said she appointed Mr McNulty to Emma on his merits, and she was aware that he was one of many people being considered for the Shannon vacancy. The Taoiseach is blaming unnamed Fine Gael officials and has apologised for what he wants us to believe is a complete coincidence, and that Mr McNulty's being selected for the Shannon by-election was entirely separate from his appointment to Emma. This is the Emma board which had its membership extended to facilitate such an appointment. Now, last week, Tánaiste, you did state that your preference for a public appointment board to make state appointments, but other than that, the silence from the Labour Party has been deafening. Tánaiste, I want to ask you, do you believe that Mr McNulty's appointment to the Emma board was a coincidence and not linked to the Shannon by-election? Had you reservations about this appointment, and did you speak to the Taoiseach about it? Do you find it acceptable that the Emma board was increased in size to facilitate this appointment in such a short space of time, rather than waiting until a vacancy arose? Or are we to believe that this too is yet another coincidence?
Thank you, Deputy.
And Tánaiste, do you not agree that Minister Humphreys should come into the Dáil so that she can answer questions on this issue? And finally, can you confirm whether the Labour Party will be voting for Mr McNulty?
Thank you. Tánaiste.
Thank you. You asked whether or not I had met the Taoiseach. I met the Taoiseach along with Minister Noonan and Minister Howland briefly on Monday following a Cabinet subcommittee. As you probably know, there are a lot of Cabinet subcommittees on Monday. And what I was focused on and what I remain focused on in relation to this particular series of events is that we should have in this state a system of appointment to state boards which actually ensures that the people appointed are the best range and mix of people to carry out efficiently and effectively the functions of the State Board. So I'm happy to say that in the brief discussion on Monday between myself, the Taoiseach, Minister Noonan and Minister Howland, I proposed, and that was accepted, that we should have a memo for government which Minister Howland was preparing at that point in relation to appointments to state boards. And I'm happy to say that the Cabinet at its meeting on Tuesday agreed to that. Now, I think in terms of state boards, Deputy, if you look at the volume of public business, the volume of turnover, the thousands of people who are employed in different state organisations, having really qualified people on state boards coming from a range of backgrounds. And this is an important issue. It is important that they come from business backgrounds, from people who have experience of HR, from people who have experience of public service, and indeed that they don't all, for instance, come from Dublin 4, that they come from right around Ireland. So we need a blend and a mix of people, because tens of thousands of workers Their jobs depend in the public sector on the State Board by which they're employed functioning efficiently and effectively. So do the public finances. So you asked me as well about a view in relation to the numbers of people on the IMA board. Well, I've always been a very regular visitor myself to IMA. It's one of my favourite places in Dublin, and I'm sure it is for lots of other people. To be honest, I don't have a view other than that I want to see the collections that are held by IMA, which are of international importance and which attract a huge number of visitors to Kilmainham on a weekly and on a yearly basis, and they're very much part of Ireland's cultural offering. So I think that a range of people need to be members of the IMA board, including obviously people with experience and background in the arts, but also people with business experience. More than that, I've never had any involvement in relation to the IMA board, except that, as I say, I'm very fond of the work that IMA does. It's a very fine national cultural institution, and I wish it well.
Deputy Robert Troy, supplementary.
Tánaiste, you and your party made a virtue and won votes in the 2011 general election on the promise of reforming the political system. Now, in the last number of days out canvassing Roscommon and in Dublin, the cynicism out there with the political system is rife. And what the Taoiseach and what you have helped the Taoiseach do in the last number of days has done nothing to compel this. Is your silence, Tánaiste, over the last number of days on this stroke politics as a consequence of your own party's involvement in appointing political cronies to state boards? Can I ask also, Tánaiste, do you agree with what the Taoiseach and his explanation over the last number of days, that everything that has happened since this appointment has always been coincidental? Minister Howlin came out on Tuesday after the Cabinet meeting, after your subcommittee meeting on Monday, and confirmed that the Labour Party would in fact be voting for Mr McNulty as the government candidate in this by-election. Can you confirm, Tánaiste, is that still the case? Will the Labour Party be voting for Mr McNulty in this by-election? And also, Tánaiste, you talk about the political appointments process and how it is important to ensure that the right calibre of persons serve on political boards. And I agree with you, Tánaiste, that is right.
Thank you, Deputy.
But since 2011, you yourself in your own department have appointed 13 people, and only one of those persons has come through the public political appointment process. Well, that is in reply to a parliamentary question that was submitted prior to the summer, Tánaiste. So perhaps you can confirm that, or else the parliamentary question is inaccurate. And can you confirm also, Tánaiste, that I suppose the political appointment to IMA by the former Labour councillor in Dunleary Rathdown that she too meets the required standards to serve on that board?
Thank you very much.
First of all, can I just say I'm really glad, Deputy Troy, that a little progress is being made here by Fianna Fáil, because notwithstanding the fact that you guys appointed some 182 appointees in a rush around January and March 2011, I wonder why, to various boards. I welcome, Deputy Troy. You were not a member, I don't think, of that Dáil. So I welcome that as a fresh face in Fianna Fáil, you have now, obviously, as you've said, agreed to an appointment system. In relation to my own appointments, and I'll get you the details, I appointed to the Citizens Information Board, I appointed the Citizens Information Confirmation Board, and Mr. McAlaren, who had previously been involved in being somebody who spoke very forthrightly in relation to banking issues. Yes, I appointed him, and I was delighted to appoint somebody independent whom previously I had only read of through the public media. Secondly, I appointed the Pensions Authority, but the appointments for that board are set out in statute, and it may come as a surprise to Fianna Fáil. The appointments there are of 3 women to the 3-person Pensions Authority. And again, I'm very prepared to stand over the appointment of women in very significant numbers to a state board. Finally, you made a comment. About former Councillor Jane Dillon-Byrne. Jane Dillon-Byrne, and I'm not sure if you'd be aware of this, has a lifelong involvement in sculpture in Ireland. She's a recognised person, extensively and intensively involved in the arts, sculpture and the visual arts in particular, and secondly in theatre, particularly in relation to theatre in the Dún Laoghaire area. Now, if she's not qualified to be on a board of a national cultural institution, I suspect that almost none of the many Fianna Fáil people who were appointed might not.
Sorry, deputies. Sorry, please. Could I ask members to? Sorry. Could I ask members, please, to respect the... Could I ask members, please, to give order in the House? I call Deputy Mary Lou MacDonald. Deputy Mary Lou MacDonald, please now.
Tánaiste, as each day passes, the detail of the McNulty debacle becomes less and less clear. The Taoiseach says that mistakes were made, that he apologises, that standards were not kept, and that he takes full responsibility for what happened. But when pressed to provide details on this, all we hear from him is waffle. On Monday, you confirmed that you had detailed discussions with An Taoiseach on these matters, not a brief discussion, as you've asserted here this morning. So, on the basis of your detailed discussion, can you tell us what exactly the Taoiseach is taking responsibility for? What role he personally played in the appointment of John McNulty to the board of the Irish Museum of Modern Art? Answers to these questions, Tánaiste, have been as clear as mud from the mouth of An Taoiseach. So we still don't know what happened and who was responsible for the clear abuses that took place. So, Tánaiste, have you raised these questions directly with An Taoiseach? As Tánaiste, have you demanded the clarity that in public the Taoiseach has failed to provide? And are you satisfied with the response that An Taoiseach has given in this chamber and to the public in general?
Well, first of all, and I have explained this previously, my objective in relation to this particular issue is to ensure that a long-standing Labour Party policy in relation to an application process in respect of state boards would be adopted. And my discussions with the Taoiseach were very much in relation to that. The Taoiseach on Friday evening actually made some comments of apology and explanation, which at that time I welcomed very warmly, and I welcome equally the statements subsequently made by the Taoiseach. I think, Deputy MacDonald, in the day that's in it, when we have the body of a young man finally being found for his distraught family, the action of the Taoiseach of this country in taking responsibility in relation to something where he has acknowledged there was definite wrong is in marked contrast to the absence of your own leader in relation to a very young man who has spent a very long time in a lonely grave. And I know his family are very grateful to the people who came forward and gave that information. But I do think your moral tone of outrage when you have nothing to say on what has been revealed in that bog in Meath means that you certainly have two separate sets of standards, unless you want to clarify that now.
Right. Deputy Mary Lou MacDonald.
The Taoiseach's response to this episode of stroke politics is one of incoherence. Studied incoherence. And yours is one of studied evasion. You had detailed conversations with An Taoiseach on this matter. Now, I find it hard to believe that in the course of those detailed discussions that you didn't ask the Taoiseach quite directly what his involvement was with the appointment of Mr McNulty to the board of IMA. I find that astonishing. Are you trying to tell us that you didn't ask him that very, very obvious question? To the public at large looking on, the Taoiseach's fingerprints are all over this stroke politics. He has been incoherent. He has taken responsibility in a generalised sense, but specifically for what? He has avoided, in a studied way, answering very clearly his involvement with the appointment of this man, a political colleague or crony, depending on your vantage point, to this board. So you had these conversations with him. Did he tell you? Did you ask him? Have you got a clear sense of the sequence of events? Do you know precisely what happened? And if you do, are you prepared to share it with the Dáil?
Thank you,
this
Deputy.
isn't an internal Fine Gael matter. The Fine Gael piece is a matter for Fine Gael. But stroke politics and pulling a fast one in appointing a person, I'm sure a fine person, to a board is not acceptable. You said that repeatedly.
Thank you, Deputy.
So what was the Taoiseach's involvement? What did he tell you? And will you share it with the Dáil?
Come on, Tánaiste.
Well, the Taoiseach has actually now explained on a number of occasions what the circumstances relating to these particular course of events were. He has done that at various media opportunities, and he's done that now on several occasions here in the Dáil. I have not heard anything beyond what I have heard or read in the public media or heard here in the Dáil. And sorry, just let me answer. You're speaking there now about silence and evasion and refusal to answer questions. Coming from your own party, I have a list of 10 party members of yours appointed to various boards in the recent period. And you know what I said, and I'm going to repeat again slowly so you can understand it. There is a very, very serious reform process to be undertaken in this country in relation to the appointments to state boards. You can disagree with my approach, Deputy Tobin, but I think what is important is to get an appointment process to state boards which actually sets out the skill sets required, because these are very important public investments on which a lot of taxpayers' money is spent and in which a lot of people work. So we're not talking about trivial point scoring, we're talking about important boards. And what I wanted, and I'm explaining this to Deputy MacDonald, what I wanted and what I want to see is a an appointment process that sets out for each department the boards under their remit and the skill sets required in relation to that board and the diversity required of different boards, whether that's in terms of regional diversity, gender diversity or other diversity. I make no apology for saying, Deputy O'Callaghan, that has been my approach, because we have to look at this in terms of the reform process in this country. And in my view, that is the way to go. And I'm happy to say that the Taoiseach has agreed, and the memo was agreed at Cabinet, published shortly thereafter by my colleague, Minister Howlin, and I believe that it will mark a new stage in relation to clarity and the appropriateness and the transparency in relation to the public and to citizens in respect of board appointments.
Thank you,
I myself, in my own department, where there have been public board appointments, I have always used the public appointment system. There are not the public appointment system. There are not a huge number of boards in the department, so there are very few such appointments. But I have used that, and I believe it's a system which, while not perfect, will work well in drawing out the best people for appointments to boards. And all of the parties, your party particularly, have always shown a heavy preference, for reasons that you've explained always, to have your own supporters on boards where you have had an opportunity. Well, I have a full list. If you want me to read them out, do you want me to read them out? I have a full people for boards. So you're not unknowing in relation to what happens in your own party on board appointments. And I'm saying that as the leader of the Labour Party, I've set out in relation to this state to have a clear system in relation. Now, ministers at the end of the day will still make the selection, and it is important they do that, because tens of thousands of jobs depend on state and public boards functioning properly to give service to the citizens and to give proper terms and conditions to the people who are employed in those bodies.
Now we go on to the technical group. I'm sorry. Sorry, one second, Deputy. Yes, point of order. If it's an order.
I wish that the record of the House reflects that on Tánaiste and the leader of the Labour Party has deliberately evaded the question.
That's not a point of order. Sorry.
Again. So either she doesn't.
No, sorry. No, it's not a point of order.
Either she hadn't the wit to put the question to An Taoiseach.
I have to call the Deputy. Deputy Mike Wallace. Now please resume your seat. Please. Order, please. Please. Deputy Mick Wallace has the floor.
Thank you.
2 minutes, Deputy.
Tánaiste, the government has boasted much of late about economic recovery, and much of that the media has acted as cheerleader for much of that. But the recovery for who, Tánaiste? I was at a public meeting in Wexford on Tuesday night, and a lot of the people there were wondering how come the recovery hasn't touched their lives. There was much more of an element of fear than recovery, and the idea that the recovery was for everybody is just not true for the majority of the people in this country. We're probably looking at, there's no doubt about it, there has been a recovery for some. We're probably looking at about 20%. Maybe a little more, but can't be much more. Now, people are actually genuinely afraid that they won't be able to pay for water. They are in fear, they are. Now, and add to this, the Taoiseach's Jobs for the Boys debacle has added to their disillusionment, making Fine Gael look as grubby as Fianna Fáil. And Fine Gael they've achieved an incredible feat by making Fianna Fáil look good through this episode. Now,
one topic, Deputy, please.
Yes, that's concordant, no problem. there was a man rang me on Tuesday, angry over the McNulty affair, and he told me about an appointment that the Taoiseach made for his good friend Michael McGarry to the board of Sustainable Energy Ireland. Now, politics has not changed in Ireland. The people voted for change in 2011, but they didn't get it. They've got more of the same. Only last July, Tánaiste, you said this government will embark on a new cycle of political reform to restore trust in our institutions and public life. Well, that trust is in tatters. Tánaiste, will you do this country a service and pull the plug on this coalition government and give the people an opportunity to pass judgment?
Come on with Tánaiste.
Well, Deputy, you talked about there being some recovery, but the recovery not being felt by everybody. Yesterday, we had the best figures in relation to the live register and people going back to work for more than 5.5 years. Now, we still have a long way to go, but unemployment has fallen to its lowest level in 5.5 years at 11.1%. Yesterday, I spoke to people from the Construction Industry Federation, and you're very much an acknowledged expert on that. And all I can say is whether you go up the road here to Grange Gorman and you look at the huge number of people now at work on a major transformation of what was effectively had become a derelict site in the centre of Dublin, and now it is being transformed by some of the best building work in Europe. And yesterday, in meeting the people from the Construction Industry Federation, we were talking about apprentices, and you've spoken to me on several occasions with extreme knowledge about that, about apprentices and trainees getting back to work. That's all positive. The Labour Party pre-parliamentary days were in Wexford, and I took the opportunity of walking around Wexford. I also opened the Intrio office in Wexford, and whether it's known to you or not, there is a significant fall in the number of people unemployed in Wexford and a significant increase in the number of people at work in Wexford. Is it as high as we would like to be? No, it's not. We have a way to go to get our country to full employment over the next 4 or 5 years. But we're coming in to a budget, Deputy, in 2 weeks' time, in which for the first time since we inherited from the former Fianna Fáil government an economy and a country and a society in a lot of meltdown, we actually will be reaching the level of the deficit that's required in a situation where we now have 75,000 more people at work compared to the 350,000 jobs that this country lost immediately in the 3 years after the bank guarantee. So I agree with you, Deputy. The country has a long road to go to putting everybody who wants to work back to work and to putting all the people in construction. There's still 80,000 or so people formerly in construction, as you well know, who are on the live register. My objective is to get as many of them back to work as possible through building up the construction sector from where it is at the moment, 6.5%, to probably double that, which would be the normal level of construction activity in a country like ours, and to build homes for the families who need the homes. And you're right, Deputy, these are the important things for people in Ireland. And what is also important is that the system of governance that we have should be as good as we make it, and in relation to the public sector, which is run by state boards, that we have really the best people that we can from a variety of backgrounds and circumstances and skills actually on those boards. And that's what the Taoiseach has now agreed and confirmed to me as the leader of the Labour Party, and I have to say I believe that that is a positive step forward for this country, and I very much welcome the Taoiseach supporting that, and the whole of government, both parties in government, supporting that very strongly. It will help to rebuild this country.
Thank you, Tánaiste. Deputy Mike Wallace.
Thank you, Tánaiste. Minister, Tánaiste, on the issue of jobs, There's 45,000 on short-term schemes, 130,000 on part-time. In total in this state, there's over 500,000 people looking for a full-time job. And the figures are obviously been helped, as you well know, by the huge immigration of young people. Now, what we have seen in the last few years in this country has been a huge erosion of public services. There's no denying it. There has been a race to the bottom in terms of social protection. An awful lot of jobs that you did create are minimum wage and no contract. Things are not as they were, and Labour has been part of it. And it surprises me that Labour has gone along with so much of the neoliberal right-wing philosophy of Fine Gael. I mean, neoliberalism has been the order of the day, and it surprises me, Minister, that you were okay with that. I honestly think that this country has to take a different direction. We have put the interest of large financial institutions and big business before those of the citizens. That is the fact. It shouldn't be that way, Tánaiste, and you know that. Right now, I reckon there's a majority of the people are sick to the back teeth of how things have developed.
Thank you, Deputy.
They are sick to the back teeth of the whole cronyism that has surfaced in the last couple of weeks. I'm actually surprised that so many people are surprised by it, but people are actually angry. They're really angry at what they are witnessing. Tánaiste, the people of this country now would like Enda's head on a plate, and you can deliver it.
Thank you,
There
Deputy.
is huge anger on the street. Are Labour okay with that?
Come on with Tánaiste.
Well, first of all, in relation to your comments on social protection, actually, just a short period ago, the ESRI produced a report by Professor John Fitzgerald and others, and he was widely interviewed in the media, pointing out that the level of income inequality in Ireland has actually decreased since the onset of the economic... Well, sorry, you know, if I gave figures or impressions of my own, you wouldn't be inclined to believe them. I went to a jobs fair on Monday in Ballsbridge, at which there were large numbers of firms recruiting. And I have just said, have we got to the stage of employment that we want? No. But it is an awful lot better than where we were. And Professor John Fitzgerald and the ESRI, who are an independent research organisation, have said, as a matter of fact, that income inequality in Ireland has actually decreased since the recession. And they have actually commended the government for maintaining social welfare, core social welfare payments and benefits. We have done that in contrast to other countries which have experienced banking crisis and banking collapses. We have done that, and we have done that as a society. And as the country recovers, I hope in fact to see the dividend from progress spreading out in particular to people on middle and low incomes and to people like retired people and pensioners. I made that very clear in terms of my objective. In terms of the banking crisis which drove the country to such a state, preceded by a crazy bubble which never made sense, and again, you know all about that. We have now actually achieved a reduction of 10 billion in terms of the cost of the banking debt, and an overall reduction of 40 billion in relation to the debt and contingent liabilities of the country. The country has actually progressed very, very significantly in terms of its total exposure to banking debt from the situation that we inherited, and we now have so many people going back to work.
Could we hear the answer? Thank you, Tánaiste.